Okay. Good morning, everybody. It is really gratifying to see this huge crowd here to talk about Utah Lake today. I'm Luke Peterson. I'm the executive director of the Utah Lake Authority, and I've been in this role. I'm closing in on 2 years, and it's been great, and it's exciting every single day to come to work and see how we can benefit the lake from day to day. I'm grateful to be able to speak with my two panelists today, um, and to really introduce what it is that we're trying to focus on for our symposium this year. The idea of us being both connected watersheds, or watershed, and communities. For us as the Utah Lake Authority, we I feel that we fill a certain sort of role. Utah Lake, people don't think of it in these terms. I've found that Utah Lake is an urban lake. It's got 16 communities sitting around it, 700,000 people, and that is really rare for a lake, right? If you start thinking about like, well, where have I seen lakes with like a million people around them? It doesn't happen that much. And so we have unique challenges that result from that. And of course, part of what we're talking about this morning on our panel is the fact that these challenges tend to move downstream, right? So what affects Utah Lake affects Jordan River, affects Great Salt Lake. And we have, I've had a number of people, Congresswoman Celeste Malloy is a really good example. I'm assuming she's not here today, so I can tell this story. Uh, she, when I first met with her, she said she was having a really rough day. She had just flown back into DC, and she had like a cold, and there were a bunch of crazy votes going on that day. And anyway, she was just having a rough day. And I introduced myself and I said, well, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. I'm Luke Peterson. I'm the executive director of the Utah Lake Authority. And she goes, well, I could be having a worse day. I could be you. Right. And this is sort of the perception that goes with Utah Lake, right? Like, how could anything be worse? Um, Now, for me, my addiction is solving messy problems, right? If you go and look at my weird resume, which covers all kinds of things, the only thing that connects it all is my love of tackling messy problems and working together with people to address those. So you'll hear more from me throughout the symposium, but just to address that concept, I think it's first important to establish that Utah Lake is the healthiest it's been in a century. It's doing extremely well. We are in a good place and we have momentum on our side. And we intend to capitalize on that to continue to make improvements on our biggest challenges. So when I think about how can I work best with my partners here, and we meet twice a year as the three organizations just to coordinate, make sure we are helping each other. We've compared notes for the legislative session, all that sort of thing. But as we've been thinking about what could we do that would best benefit the system as a whole, the thing that we've focused on is our work on invasive vegetation. So, for those of you who don't know, there's a grass it's actually, or a weed, depending on who you're talking to, that's actually quite pretty, right, for mites. And it winds up in the background of a lot of family photos, I've noticed. Right. So it's unfortunate that it's like a charismatic plant that people are like, oh, that. But it is also a water guzzling monster that crowds everything else out and inhibits the ecosystem in significant ways. So us, and when I say us, I always mean Utah Lake Authority and our partners, right? So June Sector Recovery Program, URMCC, DNR, Bureau of Reclamation. I'm always afraid to go through a list because I know I'm going to miss people. But you know who you are, right? Our partners. Um, we have managed to reduce the amount of frag that we have out there by, we're at like what, 85% now, Addie? Okay. Which is a huge victory, right? We've managed to cut that back significantly. And then Addie's work, she's in the past 2 years, she's really begun our restoration work, putting native and beneficial species to anchor those locations, so that we can keep frag at bay where we've taken it out. But as I've been thinking about how do we best benefit the system as a whole, I really feel like we need to set our sights higher, challenge ourselves, and see what we can do. So the plan that we're working on at our end of the system is we intend over the next 5, maybe 6 years to continue the frag work at the shore, but then also take that up the tributaries, right? We don't need seed banks up there, repopulating our shores. And there are going to be benefits to all of those tributaries, all the rivers, streams, creeks, canals, etc., to deal with frag up system. And then additionally, we're going to tackle, which we haven't really done that much of before, the woody vegetation and invasives. So tamarisk and Russian olive. Is Ben Abbott here this morning? He is. Okay. So Ben Abbott was the one who shared this terrifying statistic with me. And a mature Russian olive tree sucks up 200 gallons of water a day. Right. And I don't know if you happen to have been along the Lakeview Parkway, there's so many of them just along there, and so many other locations. And so I feel like this is something we can do. It will benefit Utah Lake tremendously, right? It'll benefit our ecosystem. It'll benefit the quality and quantity of water that we have, but it will also benefit Jordan River and Great Salt Lake. If we can successfully do this, my hope is that we will manage to get millions more gallons of water to Great Salt Lake as a result. Now, this project comes with many challenges. And I always tell my staff that I operate as sort of like the political operator within the Utah Lake Authority, right? I know that there are limitations and all sorts of things that have to be figured out. But as the political operator, I also don't care, right? I just say like, hey, we're going to do this. And they have to figure it out. I feel really bad about that, Eddie, but it's nevertheless true. We benefit from a few things. So we have an appropriation, assuming that Congress unshuts down the government and passes a budget. We have some dollars, an earmark appropriation from Senator Curtis that will serve as some startup capital for this project. We'll be working on grants to fill in the rest of the blanks to make sure this happens. So we'll have to deal with funding. We're going to have to deal with coordination. We need the help of all these cities, all the communities around the shore in order to make this happen. We're going to have to work with landowners. We work with a lot of landowners with our frag treatment around the shore. We're going to have to expand that a lot, right, in order to go up these tributaries. And we're going to have to do some things that we haven't really done before. In order to really do this work, we're going to have to work with Wasatch County, for example, right, which we haven't really done before. We've always kind of operated in our little Utah Valley bubble in doing Utah Lake work. But this will require us to get outside of that bubble a little bit. We'll need to figure out how we're going to maintain it, how we're going to do the restoration work. All of these things, right, are significant challenges that will have to be sorted out. But from my perspective, I just think we need to decide to do it. I'm kind of in that boat when it comes to these sorts of things. If we do it, it will be a tremendous benefit to Utah Lake, to the whole system. And that's how I see us being able to really move things forward for the whole system. I also see it better knitting together these communities, right? We're all working together on this. Then we have a sense of common purpose. The political scientist Robert Putnam talked about, who studies sort of what brings people together, social capital. Robert Putnam made this argument that there's a reason why that social capital, that trust and bond among Americans was so strong in the 1950s. And he said the reason was because we defeated Hitler, right? We just got done fighting the worst enemy anybody could imagine, right? And that concerted, shared effort is what brought Americans together more powerfully than they'd ever been or have been since. So, as terrible as Hitler was, right? We had that benefit from it. Challenges have that ability to really knit this together as communities, organizations, and partners. So that's what I see this project doing. That's why we're sort of, this is where we're headed. This is the goal we're going to attain, and what we want to work on. So thank you. There we go.
Morning. It's good to see a full room here. I see a lot of faces of people that I know and appreciate and have collaborated with, and a lot of new faces. Good to be with you. And thank you, Luke, so much for the invitation to join your symposium. We are going to be having a Salt Lake County watershed symposium that focuses on the Jordan River in just about 3 weeks. And it will be fun to see the interconnectedness between this whole system. As was mentioned in the introduction, I'm Soren Simonsen. Luke's probably my closest peer, working for a similar kind of organization that started as a commission like ours did and is now the Utah Lake Authority. I'm Soren Simonsen, the executive director of the Jordan River Commission. And I've been involved with commission since it was just an idea back in the mid 2000s. I've been on the staff since the summer of 2017, and it's been a great experience. I want you to imagine for a minute 15,000 years ago, if you can, and if you step outside, you would be on the bottom of an enormous lake. We all know Lake Bonneville. We hear about it in our geologic history. The Jordan River is kind of this unique river in Utah. You know, we have tremendous rivers that have carved themselves through sandstone and mountains for millions of years. This river is unique because it didn't exist 15,000 years ago. It maybe just barely existed 10,000 years ago. And interestingly, as there has been a lot of research going into archaeological history, the history of the Jordan River and the history of people in this region are entirely contiguous. There were people already living and sustaining themselves on the benches of Lake Bonneville as it was subsiding. I can't imagine if people observed the lake declining as rapidly as it did when it breached Red Pass up in southeastern Idaho, and literally over a period of years went from this enormous lake and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. So we have this kind of unique history with the Jordan River as people. That history really kind of went on steroids as Mormon pioneers, other settlers came in and colonized this area. in the mid 1800s and began to use the river in very different ways than it had been used for thousands of years. It was the source of life and sustenance. We talk about the crossroads of the West in terms of airports and freeways. The indigenous people in this region talk about the Jordan River being the crossroads of the West for thousands and thousands of years. It was the place they came to trade. It was where they lived and sustained life and community and vitality. We began to transform the river. It was seen during the Industrial Revolution, like many rivers across the country and around the world, as a commodity. It served industry, and we've transformed our rivers and streams and waterways in ways that have not always been positive. It fed industrial growth and a lot of development and creating modern society, but there were a lot of impacts. This is an image of the Midvale slag site in the middle of the Salt Lake Valley in the mid 1900s. Fortunately, we have begun to embrace our natural resources in really remarkable ways over the last probably 40 or 50 years. I think that started with the environmental movement, Earth Day, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, a lot of those things that happened, strong bipartisan support of taking care of the earth and all of the systems that support human life and all life. Just a little bit of background about the Jordan River. Many of you probably know this. It's a short river. It's only 50 miles in length. It connects two largest water bodies in the state. It leaves Utah Lake at the North Shore in Saratoga Springs and empties the natural river empties into Farmington Bay, which doesn't really exist right now in Great Salt Lake, but a major part of the Jordan River is diverted in Salt Lake City and enters the south arm of Great Salt Lake through what's known as the Surplus Canal. There's a lot of different jurisdictions that have regulation over the Jordan River, and that's really why the Jordan River Commission exists today, trying to do their own piece for many years. Cities like Murray and Salt Lake and Saratoga and Lehigh didn't even really exist around the river like they do today 50 years ago. But over time, many communities have begun to embrace this river as an incredible natural resource for recreation, for inspiration, for culture, and for community. And it's great to see life and vitality kind of recentering around the Jordan River and its tributaries. In 2008, leaders came together and created a vision for improving the Jordan River and its surrounding lands. Increasingly, that has expanded to the entire watershed, which includes the entire watershed of Utah Lake. That is the origin of the Jordan River. And so we like to think of Utah Lake as being part of this Jordan River system. And there's a lot of work that we're doing to collaborate with the Utah Lake Authority, the Provo River Watershed Council, and others upstream, because we all rely on each other for the kinds of improvements that we hope to see. The Jordan River Commission was organized in 2010 through an interlocal agreement. We reached a milestone this year, and that we have every local government that has jurisdiction over the Jordan River, 16 cities and 3 counties, all participating. We have a number of state agencies, environmental quality, natural resources, transportation, a number of special districts, which include water utilities, both water that leaves the rivers and water its system and water that gets put back into it through wastewater treatment. We have the Utah Lake Authority, just about this time last year, joined the commission, and we see that as just a real signal of how important the whole movement around the watershed is. Presently, we have a governing board, and we were just recently certified also as the Watershed Council. And so we are now thinking about the entire watershed as we do the work of the Jordan River Commission. This is a picture. Some of you may recognize this if you've been to Willow Park in Lehigh. I'm going to just highlight 4 of the big challenges that the Jordan River faces today. This was originally a natural tributary. You can see it's been heavily channelized. This comes from the Dry Creek creekway that comes out of the mountains in Alpine, and it eventually becomes primarily a stormwater system. This is on 300 North in Lehigh. And one of the things that's really hidden to many people is the fact that all the storm drains in the region connect to our water bodies. Usually that's hidden underground. This is one of the few areas that you can see really directly what's going on. There's a storm drain on the street. It goes into a pipe, and somewhere that pipe exits into one of the natural water bodies. This happens to be a tributary to the Jordan River, just a few hundred feet from the river. And so everything that collects, leaves, organic material, sediment, bitter, all of the things that collect in our storm system end up in the river. You can see what these look like from the river, a lot of outlets. And as litter and chemicals and oils and pollutants gather, this is what they look like near the bottom of the watershed. This happens to be near the Utah State Fairport in Salt Lake City. One of the other big challenges is water in the river. This is the Jordan River in Lehigh when it's full. It's about 200 feet wide, probably 10 to 15 feet deep in places in Utah County. This is what it looks like often in the wintertime. From about this time of year to about April or early May, there's not much water, especially when Utah Lake is being used as a reservoir. That really changes the dynamic. It makes recreation, which is pictured here, a little bit challenging. The other thing that happens is when you pass the point of the mountain into Bluffdale, out of Utah and into Salt Lake County, the river really disappears. There's a whole network of diversions, structures, and canals that take water from the river. And if you want to understand why Great Salt Lake looks like it does today with declining water levels, it's because the tributaries that were 200 feet wide and 15 feet deep become barely a trickle, and the water is diverted for a lot of important purposes, but clearly we've changed the dynamics of Great Salt Lake. One of the other things that we're facing that's connected to that is the invasive species. Luke already referenced Phragmites, Russian olive, tamarisk. Those are the three primary invasive species. They're very water consumptive. They take water out of the river. They impact natural habitat for wildlife. They're really disruptive to recreation. If you've paddled the Jordan River and hit a low-hanging branch on a Russian olive and you come out with cuts and scrapes all over your arms and your forehead, it's a real challenge. Homelessness is becoming an increasing challenge on the Jordan River as well. And it has its own impacts. It adds to the accumulation of debris and pollutants in the river as well. And then, so those are kind of the major challenges that we face around the Jordan River. I know many of those are common challenges on the tributaries to Utah Lake and Utah Lake. And so we're learning from each other. Utah Lake is about a decade ahead of us on working on its invasive species, but we're learning a lot. We have different ways of approaching that. When you have steep riverbanks rather than a shallow shoreland, the techniques are very different. When you don't have a lot of public land around the Jordan River, that makes it difficult to access. There are some great things that are happening. I'm just going to share with you a little gallery of some things that make me optimistic. This was the construction a few years ago of a boat launch in Salt Lake City. This is one in Bluffdale that was recently completed. Over the last decade, we've added about 25 new access points to the Jordan River. This not only makes it easier for volunteers to get in, but people are experiencing the river in ways that they never have before. We have legislators that are like, I want to focus recreation around the Jordan River. And just yesterday, I was at a meeting with a senior senator in the Utah Senate who said, I want to focus on getting people into the river, not just on the trail and the parks around it, but actually getting people into the river, both for those experiences, but also that they can, so that they can become part of the stewardship happening in the river and around the river as well. Lots of opportunities and experiences with youth and activities that are focused on river recreation. As I mentioned, these new access points have made it easier to get into the river to help clean the litter out of the river. And at the bottom of the watershed in Salt Lake and North Salt Lake, we do these sometimes two or three times a week through the spring and the summer and into the fall. And it's just been really amazing to see the level of participation and engagement by the community. We love times that get us together, opportunities that get us together, are Jordan River Get to the River Festival, which happens throughout the entire month of September. This year we had over 55 events that got people to the river in lots of different ways: arts and culture, music, social events, recreation events, conservation and stewardship activities, fishing days in several locations. These are stocked fish. But I accepted the challenge of one of my close friends when I started working at the commission. He said, "I want to be able to fly fish and catch a trout in the Jordan River." And I said, "I accept your challenge." And I've been working on that ever since. We have faith communities and school communities, kids that are coming to learning centers like the Kennecott Nature Center in Murray, and the new Nature Center at Pia Ojai in South Salt Lake. The Murray School and the Granite School districts are bringing kids to learn about the river and get their hands messy and dirty, involved with water quality and monitoring and things like that. There's research going on around the Jordan River, and we're connecting with all of the higher education institutions as well. It's been just really incredible seeing the support and engagement coming from the community. And that really is an indicator of the kind of partnerships that we're creating. Partnerships among agencies. We now have 45 partners that are participating in the Jordan River. In addition to governments, we have nonprofits and businesses and industries and agriculture. We have volunteers, businesses that will shut down their business on a Friday and bring everybody out to the Jordan River doing service. The days of service around 9/11 and MLK and Earth Day are creating opportunities to get people out planting and seeding and growing and picking up weeds and litter and all kinds of things. So it's been exciting to see the partnership grow. We know that our partnership is expanding as we're thinking about our watershed with Utah Lake and with Great Salt Lake. And it's essential that we continue to grow and build these partnerships to have a healthy watershed and a healthy system. And with that, I'll turn it over to Hannah to bring us home.
Thank you. Good morning. It's good to be with you all this morning, and I appreciate, again, Utah Lake Authority and the opportunity to speak with you all. We timed these talks, or laid out these talks, in a very purposeful way. Not really, but it makes me laugh that we went Utah Lake, Jordan River, Great Salt Lake. So we make sure that we follow the flow of the water, just, for all of us that geek out about things like that. But I just wanted to give a brief update on Great Salt Lake, and then again, echo some of the same things that Soren and Luke talked about, and the opportunities that we have to work together. So as you can see, Great Salt Lake covers, 4 states, 5 watersheds, and all of the freshwater tributaries of Great Salt Lake flow into the South Arm. The Jordan River is the southernmost tributary that flows into Great Salt Lake. I can show this picture from the International Space Station. I don't have a pointer, but you can see down in the very bottom, if you look close, you could see Utah Lake down in the bottom, and then its proximity to Great Salt Lake. And so when we look at it from this scale, we really are very closely connected and very interconnected. And we can just see the work that we all need to do as we work together on our specific areas of interest. And there's so many opportunities to cross over. So currently on Great Salt Lake, we are sitting at 4191.2. It rained. Oh, take a deep breath. It rained. I know. Applause for the rain. And it was such a beneficial thing for Great Salt Lake, as well as many of our other watersheds. We figured that working with water resources at Great Salt Lake rose about 2.5 inches from all of the rain that we got in October, and it saved us about 1 month worth of evaporation, which is just astronomical when we think about things in that term. Great Salt Lake evaporates 2 to 3 million acre feet every year. And so to be able to cut that evaporation time off by a month and save us some of that water was just a beautiful opportunity that we had. in October. So we are also very grateful. Just highlight a few things that are happening around Great Salt Lake that you may have heard, or some of the buzzwords that are going on that you hear maybe in the media. I'll address really quickly the causeway berm. This causeway berm has become a really powerful tool for state leaders in managing the Great Salt Lake, specifically for salinity levels. So it's this Union Pacific Railway berm that divides the north and south arm. It was never really intended to be a management tool, but it has become one for us. And the management opportunities that it gives us is to be able to hold fresh water in the south arm if needed, or be able to mix the north and south arm. Typically, those are mixing anyway. That our state legislators has given Forestry, Fire, and State Lands the ability to manage the berm if we get into critical situations like we saw in 2022 when the South Arm was becoming so saline that we were looking at an ecosystem collapse there, and have the opportunity to cut off the saltwater flows from the North Arm and just keep more fresh water in the South Arm. And so what that has done for us is, as we sit today, even though the Great Salt Lake level are declining, the salinity is in a really good position. So you can see, it's kind of hard to see here, but that green bar that runs along the top of this graph are ideal salinity conditions for brine fly and brine shrimp production. And we're sitting right on the bottom of that graph, so nearly too fresh, which is a good problem to have, especially as the lake levels continue to decline. So look, also something that is always a hot topic, it's Great Salt Lake dust. And just wanted to share a few highlights of what the Commissioner's Office is working on with many partners regarding Great Salt Lake dust. One big question mark that exists with the dust around Great Salt Lake is, where is it coming from? Because it's not just the Great Salt Lake lake bed. We also have Severe Dry Lake and the West Desert out west of the Great Salt Lake. And so we have wonderful opportunity at the Commissioner's Office to partner with the Division of Air Quality and build out a dust network. Very similar, you'll recognize it being very similar to our air quality network with the red, the green, and the yellow. And those monitors. And what we're aiming to do is to look at where is the dust coming from, what is in the dust, and then be able to set up a network of an alert system. So the public is informed about what's in the dust and where it's coming from, so that we can make informed decisions as we experience Salt Lake dust and dust from elsewhere around the state. There is a petition to list the Wilson's phalarope an endangered species petition that utilizes Great Salt Lake as one of the many, as well as many other birds. 10 to 12 million birds visit Great Salt Lake every year as part of the Pacific Flyway. There is very much a very strong interest in the state to be able to keep this Utah problem and to keep this listing from happening. We felt at the state level that we do it best. We know Great Salt Lake, we know the Jordan River, we know Utah Lake better than anybody. And so we're very much interested in keeping this listing from happening and doing our part to ensure that there is valuable habitat and quality habitat for these species that utilize Great Salt Lake. Recently, a couple of years ago, the Great Salt Lake Commissioner's Office was formed. So we're the new kids on the block here. And we had the opportunity to write a strategic plan. I think about this line that I highlighted from our strategic plan, that we shall base a strategic plan on a holistic approach that balances the diverse interests related to health of Great Salt Lake. And so that is a monumental task when I think about balancing those diverse interests, because there are so many interests and so many problems and concerns, and also wonderful things about Great Salt Lake and the watershed surrounding it. And so we focus on these. When we look at solutions for Great Salt Lake, we focus on things that are ecologically sustainable, economically viable, politically possible, technically feasible, and legally sound, and use those as our guiding principles when we work on Great Salt Lake. A couple of things that I would like to highlight that are looking ahead and what we can do moving forward to improve Great Salt Lake and its surrounding watershed. We were awarded a $50 million grant from the Bureau of Reclamation, and we intentionally left this grant opportunity broad. So we want the grant opportunity to feel like, bring us your ideas. We want to throw a wide net and just see the ideas that are available. to help the health of Great Salt Lake. And that ties in very well to what Soren and Luke talked about, the opportunity to look at the watershed as a whole. So we're very interested with some of these dollars and looking at opportunities on the Jordan River, opportunities on Utah Lake. So bring us your ideas. The funding opportunity is open until the end of January. So if there are those of you that may be interested in submitting ideas or submitting proposals, that can be found on our website. I'll put that up here at the end. Another thing, it's important when three of us talk about the work that has gone on with Phragmites, and we definitely look to Utah Lake as the example. Just such amazing work and so much work that has gone on to eradicate a huge volume of Phragmites, and that when we look at the Phragmites invasion on Great Salt Lake, it seems very overwhelming. But we know that it's something that we can tackle and something that requires a lot of dollars and a lot of work and a lot of collaboration. So we are so grateful to be able to work with Utah Lake, learn from the lessons that they have learned, and then also work with the Jordan River. And like Soren and Luke said, to look up the watershed and continue this work on Phragmites. The last thing that I will mention is the Governor Cox's 2034 Great Salt Lake Charter that was just recently announced. We're extremely excited. This is such a fantastic and new opportunity that was a commitment of $200 million private dollars towards helping Great Salt Lake. And we look at it as a place that anybody that is interested, this is a place that you can look. You can come and sign the charter if you want to get involved in any of those projects or any of those ideas. It's a place that unifies us together as Utahns and together in this watershed. And we're excited about that opportunity to see what that looks like and see where those funds will be allocated and dedicated. And we like that date of 2034. It's an important date coming up for all of us as we set to host the world with the Olympics and the Paralympics. And so more about the charter and also the grant opportunity can be found on our website. With that, I will just close with the sentiment from the commissioner's office that anytime that we're doing work in the watershed, so when we're doing things to benefit Utah Lake, when we're doing things to benefit the Jordan River, those things automatically benefit Great Salt Lake and vice versa. These watersheds are very interconnected, as we all know, and the ability and the opportunities that we have to coordinate our efforts are so valuable, and we're grateful for those opportunities. Thank you.
Since we're hidden here, before we can slide the chairs on you. It's all good. All right. Okay. Thanks, guys. So now we'll take some questions. If anybody has any, I've got a whole list if we don't, but curious, you can direct a question to all three of us or to an individual panel member. Either way works. We've got like 6 minutes for questions.
Stand here next to you.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Also, I'm a professor, so I could just stand here until somebody raises.
Yeah. So for those in the back, the question was, what's happening with security, particularly around the Jordan River, and people that want to recreate but may not feel safe? So as I mentioned, it's a complicated issue. There was a real surge in homeless activity around the Jordan River, beginning with Operation Rio Grande in Salt Lake City in 2016 and 2017. That resulted in a lot of people being simply moved because we don't have access to the resources. There is a proposal currently in front of the state that's been led by the State Homeless Services Board and State Homeless Coordinator Wayne Niederhauser. They currently have some one-time money to develop what they're calling a state homeless campus. And Eventually, that will be the site was just announced for that. It is near the Jordan River in the very north end of Salt Lake City, just across the boundary from Davis County and North Salt Lake. It will house, we've heard estimates from about 1,200 to 1,600 individuals. And, but it needs funding, and it needs really match the vision of what's anticipated in being able to address this large and growing challenge of homelessness. Unfortunately, there's a lot of other criminal activity that sometimes is associated with homelessness. It's really distinct, but there's a lot of drug-related activity that's been happening around the Jordan River, and like was happening around Pioneer Park in 2014 and 2015, and those times the drug activity is kind of screened around homelessness so that it's not as obvious, and a lot of vulnerable people are being preyed upon as well. With some of that drug activity. So it's complicated. It needs a coordinated solution. One of the real challenges that we face is that we have a very decentralized local government structure. These large homeless campuses have worked really effectively in places like Reno and San Antonio and Austin, but you have a really large central city in those locations. Salt Lake City represents less than 10% of the population of Utah, Salt Lake, and Davis County. There are presently 0 shelter beds in Utah County and in Davis County, other than domestic violence beds. So it will require a coordinated effort, and I think we're talking about the Jordan River Commission as being a model for how we tackle issues like housing crisis and homelessness crisis and drug activity, which will require much more coordination among all the local government agencies. So I'm optimistic that there's a lot of focus on this right now, but it will take funding and it will take a lot of support. And we need every community across the Wasatch Front seeing that they have a role to play in tackling these big regional issues. So that was a little wordy response, but I am optimistic that there is sufficient focus on this now, but we need to bring partners together. And again, it's all about partnership.
I was going to say you're other people rather than alone.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're doing that.
Yeah. So organizing paddle, bringing other people into it. We've actually been doing paddles for about 5 years. We didn't do them this year, but for several years, we were actually taking the homeless court onto the Jordan River in what we called kayak court with Judge G. Robinson from the Salt Lake Municipal Court, and helping to address barriers to housing, people that had a conviction, sometimes a low-level conviction, but it kept them from being able to get sign a rental agreement because of a background check or something. So there's some innovative work happening to tackle this. It just needs a lot more effort from a lot more communities and participants.
One last question. Yeah.
The coordinated effort to suppress frag live use.
Yeah, great question. So for Utah Lake specifically, all of our energy has been focused on frag. But that's part of this initiative that I'm talking about is we're now going to turn and we're going to also pivot to do work on Russian olive and tamarisk. So it's something that will be largely new for us, but we're excited to get to work on it. And yeah, I think it's a critical piece to making sure that we have a healthy ecosystem, getting as much water to the end of the row as we possibly can. Thank you for asking. Okay. Thanks, everybody.